and more in Love is Blind, we're seeing more conversations about couples getting into their political beliefs that we didn't really see in the earlier seasons. And I think it's about time because I think politics are very important in a relationship. For me, as a woman and someone who's black, a black woman together, who's second generation, whose family came to Europe as refugees, amongst other things, it's impossible for me to be politically neutral. But there definitely is certain groups who either don't have to think about it at all or have to think about it less. With the obvious offenders being white men, but I think right after them is white women. And in the context of America, we saw that on the ballot. The latest season is taking part in Minneapolis, or in the Minneapolis area, Midwest, I'm assuming. And it seems like the area in which it's taking place, there's a very strong Christian religious influence. And Minneapolis is also where George Floyd's murder happened, which kind of reignited the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020. Which leads us onto our case study, Ben and Sara. Sara is a white woman and she says that she comes from a conservative family. But she says that she didn't really become politically active conscious, even though by default, being in a conservative family and being conservatively aligned, still political, but anyway, I digress. She said she didn't really think about politics until Trump came into office and until the Black Lives Matter movement happened, because obviously she's from Minneapolis and the whole George Floyd thing happened in Minneapolis. So she saw the black square on Instagram and she was like, yeah, I need to take to the streets. This is wrong. You know, so she's doing the work, she's holding space, she's getting educated. And yeah, she thinks, you know, what now she sees that, you know, what's been happening in America in terms of, you know, the treatment of black people has not been right. And, you know, of course, Trump, the whole big thing with women's rights, abortion rights, she thinks that's wrong. And I think she was hoping that Ben was going to be, you know, politically engaged and be like, yeah, you know, I think it was wrong as well. Ben basically said, that's not my business. I don't care about it. He said, my white ass is not involved. And he also said that he didn't vote in the last election. He's not involved, saying that he's unpolitical. And like I said in the beginning, white men have the privilege of not giving a fuck about politics because it doesn't affect them. The patriarchy, how things are going now, they're living cushy. Why would they want to mess up the status quo and lose their privilege? So yeah, it don't concern them because everything's going right. They don't care that you're suffering. They don't care that you're losing your rights because they got the better end of the deal. I think a lot of white men and white people in general are happy for systems of white supremacy not to change, because I think they just always think that somebody has to get the bad end of the deal. There can't be this place where everyone is equal and everybody has equal rights and, you know, we're all getting along and we're all getting on well and, you know, no one's hungry, nobody's poor. I feel like a lot of them feel like that's just unrealistic. And there's always going to be somebody getting the short end of the stick. So therefore, if other groups, if black people say get more rights, then that means we're going to get less rights and our lives are going to be bad. And therefore, if I have to choose between who's going to be the one getting the shitty deal, I'm not going to give up the good deal that I have now. And therefore, it has to stay like this. And on the extreme end of things, I think that kind of plays into the whole white replacement thing. This irrational fear that, you know, black people don't want equal rights. We want to get even. So, you know, that's the quiet part out loud. But that's essentially what they mean when they say that they're not involved. Some people may disagree, like, especially if they feel like, oh, being neutral is not harmful. But when you are neutral, you are on the side of the oppressor. And it's giving very much like if things turned into the Handmaid's Tale, they would be fine with it. Now, Sara is immediately conflicted and is just kind of thinking like, you know, I don't really like this. Like, you know, obviously she wants her partner to be as progressive as her. And she's talking to another black woman in the pods talking about, you know, this is what he said about the whole Black Lives Matter situation. And the black woman is even like, oh, maybe you just need to educate him. Huh? Even Sara was like, there's no way you can educate somebody on fundamental things, like fundamental humanity, like how to be a human, like how to see the humanity in others. You can't teach that. It was very much side-eyed to the black woman who was like, oh, just teach him, huh? A grown-ass man, they know what the fuck it is. They know what the fuck it is. They know what the fuck it is. Like I said, they don't care to give up their cushy position. So then it's kind of this air of, is she gonna, call it quits? Because, if she's really standing on business, if she's really done the work, if she really clicked on those links in the bio, surely that would be the end of her and Ben, right? Nope, they get engaged. And they actually don't even touch on the subject again. She kind of just accepts that he is, unpolitical. Even though we know that's not true. And also, I know that's not true because in the trailer before, he's talking about how he goes to church every Sunday. I'm sorry, you can't be a Christian. You can't be of a religion and not be political. Like that's political in itself. Religion is very political. There's no way you can separate the two. And with the state of America right now, like that cannot ring more true. And it seems that maybe because she is more progressive, I'm not sure if she goes to church every Sunday, but it seems like his parents at least are very conservative and that doesn't rub them the right way. And that might cause issues. And I feel like that's another reason why you can't really ignore politics or accept answers as, accept answers like, oh, I'm not political. I'm not politically active. I'm unpolitical. I'm neutral. Because usually they're not. Because I feel like it's impossible to be neutral. Most of the time, it means that they're conservative or very happy to be in a conservative world. And even if we put the Black Lives Matter thing aside, he said he didn't vote in the last election, which means he doesn't care about women's rights and the whole abortion thing because that's affecting white women. And that's why we're seeing a lot of them speak up more now because now their rights are affected. Now what happens now? I don't know what the situation is in Minneapolis or in the Midwest, whether they have the abortion ban there. But what happens now when you need an abortion and you can't get it where you are and you're trying to, ask your husband Ben for help and he's talking about don't get me involved? What then? Imagine things start turning into Handmaid's Tale and you're turning to your husband and he's like, I'm not involved. Huh? You can't ignore things like this, especially as a woman, period. You cannot ignore things like politics. Unless you're on the same page, fair if you guys are both conservatives. But if you're a progressive woman and you're getting with a guy who basically says that he don't care that your rights are being taken away, what are you doing? But again, I'm not surprised simply because, women are desperate to get married. And when you're marrying someone, you don't have good options anyway. Whether you're a conservative woman or a liberal woman, but to be a liberal or progressive woman, you've got slim pickings. Because most men are conservative leaning. Even the ones that are self-proclaimed feminists, they got some conservative thoughts up in there as well. So I feel like that's why progressive women do end up with conservative leaning men, men that quote unquote don't care about politics. And this isn't just white women either. It's all across the board, race-wise, in terms of so-called progressive women saying that they're progressive but then ending up with a man who's not. All for the sake of a relationship. Personally, I don't think it was that deep to get married. And I'm not really sure about this relationship, to be honest. Like, even their meet together seemed very performative from Ben's side. But we'll see. I think, politics might come in between them. But we'll see. Because, like I said, progressive women, they will marry these men with questionable political views. But I got to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts on the Ben-Sara political situation? And does this mirror real life? Let me know what you guys think.